I want to welcome the GMs and the wives, the godly men and the warm, inviting, feminine, empathetic women out there. There's bound to be some misconception at the title of this video, so I want to make sure that I do not skip a beat and that I'm as clear as possibly can be throughout the entirety of this video. When I say behave as if you're God and see what happens, there's a difference between behaving as if you're God, behaving as if you're a part of God, and being as one with God. So you are not God. I am not God. None of us, unfortunately, as amazing as it would be, we're not God. And yet, at the same time, there would be some very dark responsibilities that come with being God. And in many ways, thank God that we are not God, but that we are a part, that we are playing a role. You know, sometimes I've thought recently, specifically, about what would have happened if I didn't play my part in the world, and if I just completely decided to put my energy entirely elsewhere. What would actually happen, and what would that be like for me down the line? What kind of life would I live? And then I think about the complete twist and other side of that, where I see what would happen if we all became the best possible versions of ourselves, and we started behaving as if we were all one with God. And not just that we were God himself, but that we were one with him. What would that really look like? I mean, to me, that would be paradise. That's the closest thing I would call paradise, where paradise is the place in which there is an absence of toxicity. There's an absence of negativity. There is only creation and positivity and the uplifting of the human and just the livelihood of life itself. The spirit of life, let's say. There's just an uplifting of the spirit of life. There's a continuous rising in life itself. This is one of the reasons why I don't really get jealous or envious anymore. And the reason for that is because whenever I do start to notice that there's maybe perhaps a bit of a hint of jealousy in somebody else's life, the only reason that I have that jealousy is because I want to learn how to live a life. Like, I want to know what they know. And it's not like I'm jealous of their life. It's more like I want to know how they got to where they are and what the process was like, so that I could possibly create something that made similar reformations and transformations in that way, so that I could live that kind of life. It's not necessarily about lifestyle necessarily. One thing that I've begun to realize more and more recently is that the more that I do these kinds of YouTube videos, the more I must articulate myself with a sense of it's like I have to make certain conjectures into how I'm speaking about something, because I might be speaking about something that is very plain and reasonable and understandable to people that are completely understanding where I'm coming from. But to many people that are not used to seeing what I'm producing and the work that I'm really about, they sometimes think they see it at face value as a form of simplicity and surface level, and they're not seeing what I'm actually saying. Because everything that I'm speaking in my videos is in the hopes and designed, not necessarily by me, but by God, to reach you as an individual. Everything that I say, everything that I do, in fact, is meant to reach the depths of who you really are. And I'm talking to you, of course, through the screen right now, but you're listening, you're attentive, you're attentive, and you're capable of seeing beyond that which is simply just before you in the room. You're taking in information in the form of a spirit in some sense. If you're watching this video, you're likely taking in the spirit and the essence of who I am and what I'm about. And this is exactly what we're meant to do in many aspects of the term, is to give our spirit. We can only authentically give our spirit and share our spirit and our joy when we know who we are. And in order to know who we are, we must have an understanding of respect for privacy. We must have an understanding of respect for our own individuality, our own humane desires, let's say. Humanic. If that's not a word, I kind of like that word, humanic. It's like, anyway. But you guys see what I'm saying here. There's a certain level of respect and compassion that you have to provide to yourself before you're able to share that kind of level of respect with somebody else. And think about everything that is constantly expanding in the universe. We're all trying to expand. Consciousness itself is always trying to expand. And there's a difference between expansion and the gravity of such expansion. Gravity doesn't really... I'm beginning to wonder how much sophistication and truthfulness there is to gravity in this day and age, simply because of all the science that's coming out and everything like that. But let's say let's use a more acceptable term. Let's call it magnetism, or let's call it forces that are polarities coming together. You as a human being have the capacity to be godlike. All you have to do is be able to give yourself the respect for individuality, the respect for your own privacy. Because if you're going around constantly sharing stuff with your life, about your life or who you are and what you're about, you have to realize that there are forces of evil in the world that are trying to stop you at every shape and turn. I've personally experienced this, and I've seen people that have experienced this as well. It's where it's almost as if they feel like they're cursed in a way that they can't move beyond certain implications of reality. And that's really not necessarily a curse. It might seem like a generational curse, for example, but what that really is deep down is it might be a way of God protecting you. Now, what exactly does that mean, right? Like, what does that mean? Well, because we can say that God's protecting you in this instance, but what kind of relative information is that exactly? Whenever there's a hurdle or an obstacle in your life that you're trying to overcome, and it's a challenge for you, for me specifically, my endurance has been a challenge, and it's more about the consistency and the intensity at which I'm living and operating in my life. I've got a lot of stuff going on almost all the time, from dusk until dawn, and even beyond dusk. I'm working. Wait. From dusk until dawn. I think I mixed them up. Basically what I'm saying is that before the sun rises, I'm working in some way, shape, or form, and after the sun rises, I'm working in some way, shape, or form. The proclivity that I have to work and the consistency that I have over the past few years has been paramount to any kind of success that I've had recently. But I've also noticed that the level of consistency combined with my diet, let's say, I've been changing my diet. I've been reducing the amount of carbs that I have, increasing the amount of protein. I've been decreasing certain amounts of sugars for years now. And the sugars are fine. The carbs is what I'm having a hard time with in many ways, because it's almost like my body reacts to carbs really well in the beginning, but then through time, the carbs just really take a hold of my body in a negative way. But in other ways, if I'm only eating like high level proteins or fruits and vegetables, I will be sustainable, but I have to keep eating. Like I have to keep eating like all day long just to have that nutrition still there. And it's almost like a ketogenic diet, you could say, but I just like to call it low carb. And the low carb diet you have to get to a certain point in which when you can go beyond that, you'll be fine. But I have to continually intake food all day. Otherwise, I'm not going to have the energy to do what I need to do throughout the day. And so you have to learn how to adapt. You have to learn how to maneuver yourself in a specific way to increase the probability of your success down the line. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out. And me, myself, I have been burning myself out recently where I'm just working so much all the time, nonstop, trying to get certain airplanes off the ground, let's say, while I'm trying to fly the airplanes that are already flying. And I'm over here in the airport hangars really trying to make sure that everything's flying okay and everything's being built properly. Some instances, I'm building the airplane as I'm flying it. Like, there's just a lot of stuff happening, and the spiritual attacks you have to deal with, the spiritual overcomings and the bearings of life can really play a big part as well. The existentialist qualities of life do not have, they sometimes can linger in a way that is detrimental to your health if you do not really take the time to take care of yourself. Because sometimes people I've met just within the last few years of the spiritual awakening, and really since like 5.5 years ago, since I spiritually awakened, let's say, I've met a ton of different kinds of people, and some of the spiritual people, quote unquote, they've been so open-minded that their brains just fell out. Like, there's no semblance of the logos within them. They've just completely exasperated their ability to be rational. And I'm not saying that rationality is the answer, but it is it is the operational mechanism in which and how we operate in the world and how we ought to operate in the world. And so to be as if we were God is to really accept that there's actually a finitude of life in some sense. We have to accept that we can make time and we can create time, yes, but we have to invest it and not spend it. We have to make sure that we are creating more opportunities for ourselves than decreasing opportunities for ourselves. And so if you are to behave as God and see what happens, you'll look at a lot of the people around. You'll see a lot of different kinds of people that really do believe that they believe that they are the authoritarian tyrant. It's not even authoritarian. It is tyranny. They are the tyrant. What I am advocating for the men specifically here is to be loving authoritarians in their life. And the only reason that we've been able to get this far as a civilization, to my understanding, and from what I've seen throughout history, is that men have been leading. They've been capable of being the loving authoritarians and not being steered away from life due to cowardice. Cowardice, do you really think that a God is going to, and I'm not saying that you should think like this, I'm just saying that, do you think that a God is going to think about taking what he believes is rightfully his? Is he going to be a coward about that? No. Think about a lion. If a lion sees a meal and he wants that meal, he's going to just go take it. That meal is his. He's decided. He's the king for a reason. And so you have to start treating your life. This is one of the reasons why I don't like saying, like, you know, king, like, stay hard, kings, or you go, king. It's like, I don't like that kind of behavior, because in some ways that's just as bad as calling all the girls queens. Like, oh yeah, you go, queen. It's like, I don't think that really helps anybody. And it ought to be a private matter. It ought to be something that is private. Be the authoritarian leader, the loving authoritarian for your household, men. Because if you can be the authoritarian that is loving in your own household, you'll be able to make a stronger impact on the world. But to try to control other people's lives when you don't have your own life in order, that's just complete idiocracy, and that's complete misunderstanding of what life is really all about, as far as I can tell. And all the women that want to be the queens, it's like, well, go ahead then. Go ahead. Go be the goddess. Go be the goddess that you want to be. See how that works out for you down the line. There's no way. I have not seen any relationship in which a woman is the goddess leading the charge, and the relationship ends in a way that is self-sustaining and happy down the line. I've never seen that happen. And I'm not saying that women don't have anything respectable or valuable to say, even though most of what modern women today are basically delusional, fantasy-making, conniving women. And then the men are the cowardice, steering away from adversity or confrontation, not capable of violence. And I'm not saying that we ought to be violent or we have to strive for violence, but we have to be capable of it. Holy cow. Too many men have not known what it's like to be punched in the face, right? Like, and I'm not saying that we should advocate that kind of behavior, but I'm saying that so many men think that they can just say whatever they want or do whatever they want. There's no consequences. And women think this way too, but I've seen a lot of men like this as well. Some might call them the incels or whatever, or black-pilled, but all in all, what I see is just a lot of cowardice in the men and a lot of vanity in the women. So yeah, go ahead. Be the god, be the goddess of your life. Try it. See what happens. See what happens. And then try being with God, with Jesus, who is the one true king, might I add. He is the king of the pathless land of truth. That is who you are to be with. When you are with Jesus, when you are with the Most High God, there's a completely different kind of playing field that it opens up to you. And with that being said, peace be with you till next time.